Hello, McFluffy52 here, back for Magic the Gathering Arena action. Today we were playing another no rares budget deck. We played through each of the mono colors, playing a no rares deck, and playing 20 games on the ranked ladder to see how we can do. Today we are playing mono red, who saved arguably the best for last in the sense that mono red is a very strong color to be playing as a budget, or on a budget, in best of one standard. Just because red as a color is just very aggressively slanted color, and there's some very powerful creatures in standard right now. So in terms of backing up that claim, I will say that I've already played 15 games with the deck, so we have 5 more to go, and I'm 10-5 with the deck. I went on like a 9-game win streak, and then I lost 5 in a row, which I guess you can imagine how emotional roller coaster that was, but made 1 or 2 tweaks to the deck, and then I played 1 more and we won that one. So we have 5 more to go. What is mono red as a color? I guess I'm gonna go through these kind of things real quick as trying to help out those who might be newer to Magic. Mono red is a very aggressive color, as I've said, because it has creatures that have like the keyword haste, meaning they can attack without summoning sickness, and it can also deal damage directly to the opponent's face, as well as it uses damage to remove things, and it also has, like, leaning into the aggressive or impulsive nature of red, has cards that exile the top cards of your library, and you only get those for a certain amount of time, or you can only cast those cards for a certain amount of time. So that's kind of the nature of red in the grand scheme of like color identity. What are we doing in no rares mono red? Well, as I said, red, very aggressive. It's also a very strong color. So there's a lot of different ways you can take this. For instance, you could play a much more burn-based deck where you're doing, you have more spells that deal direct damage, but I kind of went for the most explosive option, which I believe to be a creature-based pump spell deck. There's 2 creatures in standard that work really well with pump spells, and so we're playing those, and some of the strongest pump spells that I think probably have ever been printed. So what are these cards that I'm mentioning? Let's go into the deck, and we'll go through the most of the cards one by one to help understand some of like the synergies in the deck. So the creatures that I'm talking about are Cacophony Scamp and Heartfire Hero. These are both 1 mana 1/1s. But notably, when they die, they deal damage equal to their power to any target, or this one does technically to each opponent. So this turns pump spells into, like, doubles up the damage of pump spells if these creatures die. And then furthermore, we can forcibly fling these creatures at the opponent using the sorcery adventure side of Callous Sell-Sword. The rest of the card we don't really care about, but we can pay 1 mana and target our Heartfire Hero or Cacophony Scamp and deal damage equal to its power to the opponent's face, and then sacrifice it forcefully. So we attack in, we deal damage equal to its power, we sacrifice it, dealing damage equal to its power with Burn Together, and then they have its death trigger, or they have their death triggers, which deals damage equal to its power again. So we kind of triple up the value that we get from these pump spells, which is what makes it so incredibly strong. So that's kind of the basis of the deck. We need a mix of creatures and pump spells. If we draw too many pump spells or too many creatures, your game will go less well, which is one of the downsides to this style of deck. But we're playing 22 creatures. We have a total of 16 1-drops, counting, 14 1-drops. I can't count. Anyways, so we have the Cacophony Scamp and the Heartfire Hero. We also have Monastery Swiftspear. It's a very strong mono red card because it is 1 mana, 1/2 with haste, and it also has prowess, which is whenever a non-creature spell, or whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. We're also playing Phoenix Chick. This is a 1 mana 1/1 with flying and haste. It can't block. And then if it ends up in our graveyard and we are attacking with 3 creatures, we can pay double red and return it from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking with a +1 counter on it. The reason we're playing Phoenix Jake is because it's a 1 mana hasty threat. We can run it out pretty safely on turn 1 if the opponent removes it. We're not too sad about it, but it also is flying, and so it's very evasive. So all of our pump spells, we can also target the Phoenix Jake pretty comfortably with and make sure that it connects with the opponent. We already kind of went through Cacophony Scamp and Heartfire Hero, but I wanted to talk through particularly the differences between these cards. Cacophony Scamp also says when it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, proliferate. So proliferate says you can choose any number of permanents or players and then give them another counter of the kind they already have. So this is helpful. Not the proliferate isn't that important, but the fact that you can sacrifice it if it connects with the opponent is very helpful, because then we don't even have to worry about having a fling spell to forcefully sacrifice it. We can pump this up to like 10 power, attack in. If it connects with the opponent, we can sacrifice it, and then it will deal damage equal to his power and deal another 10 to the opponent's face. That's just like kind of why this sacrifice trigger is good. Heartfire Hero is a little different, but it also has a nice and strong ability on top of its death trigger, which is when it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, you can put a +1 counter on it. So this just increases Heartfire Hero's power even more when we target it with spells, pump spells, or our sacrifice spell, which is nice. Another creature that works really well with pump spells, or when we're casting a bunch of spells, is Electrostatic Infantry. It has a kind of wording that's similar to Prowess. Prowess pumping whenever you cast a non-creature spell. Electrostatic Infantry though is a trample 1/2, and it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can put a +1 counter on it. So that's pretty much all of our non-creature spells here. Now for the pump spells, we're playing a playset or 3 different ones. We have Felonious Rage, which is a 1 mana instant that gives target creature you control +2/+0, and it gives haste. And then if that creature were to die, we get to create a 2/2 white-blue detective creature token. This is very nice because it can give some of our creatures that don't have haste naturally, which are Cacophony Scamp, Heartfire Hero, and Electrostatic Infantry, haste, so we can kind of surprise the opponent. If they're tapped out and they're previously removing all our stuff, we can try and store up cards in our hand and then haste something out that way. It's also just very nice that we can hold this up. If the opponent's playing a lot of removal, we're concerned about whether or not they're going to remove our creatures, and then we're going to have no creatures on board to target with our pump spells. We can hold up the Felonious Rage. If they go to remove something, we can target with this, and then if they remove it, we still get a body to target with our pump spells. Alright, Monstrous Rage is our next pump spell here. Is 1 mana, and it gives target creature +2/+0, and you get to create a Monstrous Roll token and attach it to that creature. Monstrous Roll token gives another +1/+1 and trample. So this is basically give +3/+1 and trample, and then you get to keep +1/+1 for forever, or I guess until the monster roll token gets removed. And so this is a very strong one because it gives trample. So if the opponent blocks, we can trample over, and then yeah, it gives a permanent buff, which is nice. Turn it inside out, a little bit similar to Felonious Rage, except it doesn't give haste, and the creature that it makes is a little bit different. It's 1 mana instant, target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. When it dies, Manifest Dread. Manifest Dread, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, you can pick 1 to go to the graveyard, and 1 you get to put onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and you can turn it face up if it is a creature for its mana cost. Turn inside out, again, we can hold this up if we think our opponent's going to remove one of our creatures, and we're concerned about not having creatures on the battlefield to target with a lot of our spells. Talked about Callous Sell-Sword. Again, we really only care about the burn together part, and that's why it's in this quote-unquote mono red deck. It's just a very powerful effect. So if we pump up even not our Heartfire Hero or Cacophony Scamp to a large amount of power, we can swing in deal damage, and then sacrifice it post-combat to do even more damage. Notably, when you cast the Burn Together, it is a sorcery, so it will trigger things like the effect of Electrostatic Infantry as well as Prowess. So if you're really need that one extra damage, don't forget about it. Blazing Crescendo is another pump spell. I guess I'm just a very big fan of this card because it is 2 mana, gives +3/+1 until end of turn, and then you exile the top card of your library until end of turn, and you may play that card. End of your next turn, sorry. So you get a pump spell that also kind of draws you a card until the end of your next turn, which is very nice because, well, you need to keep drawing cards to keep casting things. And then speaking of drawing cards to cast things, again, it's not drawing cards technically, but Wrenn's Resolve is a 2 mana sorcery that says exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may cast them until the end, or play them until your end of your next turn. And so this can allow us to just dig through our library, especially if we're against a heavy removal deck. This is one of those cards that can help us get out of a bind where we've run out of creatures to attack in and pump up. So that's the deck. We're playing 19 lands here. I was originally playing 20, and that was one of the tweaks that I made. I played the first 14 games, and I ran into like a bunch of removal heavy decks in the, like I said, I won 9 games in a row, and then I ran into a bunch of removal heavy decks and got a bit unlucky. And so I lost 5 games in a row, and so I figured we need as many Wrenn's Resolves as possible so that we can kind of recover from those sorts of games where we run out of cards and we need to find new threats to add to the board. So I trimmed 1 land and I trimmed 1 Felonious Rage to go all the way up to 4 Wrenn's Resolves. So that is the deck. That is the changes I've made. We have 5 games to go. Hopefully, maybe we can go 15-5, but we will see. All right, gotten through all the rambling. Time for the games. Do we keep a 1-lander? I have kept several 1-landers, and I have won, I think, at least 1 game that I kept a 1-lander. I don't think this hand is good enough because we don't have enough cards that are only 1 mana, and we only have 1 creature, so if they remove it, would be less good. This hand, do we keep the Heartfire Hero, or do we, what do we put back? We put back one of the creatures, I think. Swiftspear is cool, but I think, as I said, these creatures just work so well with pump spells that we're going to go ahead and keep them. Opponent on Rakdos. Duress means we lose our Monstrous Rage, but that is okay. We put this one to the bottom, and we also managed to draw it. Not bad. We'll go ahead and just play it out, because it has haste, and so we'll push as much damage as fast as we can. You have to be worried about the opponent casting a sweeper, but the opponent already duressed us, so I think if they have a sweeper and they manage to win that way, or manage to clean up our entire board that way, we don't have enough cards in our hand anyways, so. Fear of missing out. The opponent's probably some sort of Reanimator deck, if I had to guess, because they're playing Fear of Missing Out, which is a card that allows you to discard cards into your graveyard. I don't think we really attack. We don't have any spells, pump spells, and anything we attack doesn't really trade well with the Fear of Missing Out. I think we have enough. Alright, that works. Send them all in. Opponent probably holding up a removal spell, but that's okay. So we could target the Heartfire Hero. Problem is the opponent, well, I think it's still the best, because if the opponent removes one of our other creatures, yeah, because this kind of makes their block a bit of a waste. Because if I pumped something else up, they could have killed that, and that would have naturally died the fear of missing out. Okay, so I don't think we've seen anything in their graveyard that they plan to reanimate, so we're good for the time being. They're down to 2 cards. If we top deck like a Wrenn's Resolve or a what is that 3-mana pump spell that I was talking about? That exile the top card of your library. This is a good card to have, but I think we have to wait a turn. Opponent really had a really good hand for stripping all of our Wrenn's Resolve. There we go. That's a good card to top deck here. Land, Callous Sell-Sword. That is okay. Well, we have a turn with it. Could make the opponent force them into blocking. I don't know. Maybe they don't block. They did. Okay, well. We will hold on to the Callous Sell-Sword. I don't think it's worth casting. We need to get at least like 1 big pump spell to pair with it. Still don't think it's worth casting this. Blazing Crescendo would be probably the best top deck here because it gives us +3/+0, or +3/+1, and then exiles the top card of our library. One is gotten a lot of lands. We draw another land. That's not good. Alright, well, another Wrenn's Resolve would be pretty good. They can do this every turn. They can make a Might with the Murex, and then they can sack it with Fountain Port. Rare lands, they're pretty good. Fountain Port is a really strong one, as well as the Soulstone Sanctuary, which is a Foundations card. That is a land that generally lands are one of the best places you can spend rares on them. Because oh my goodness, land. Because they're not super deck dependent, such as something like Fear of Missing Out. It's going to be good only in like certain styles of decks, whereas like the lands will be good in any deck of those colors. Notably, talked about this in the Mono Blue video. Some sets will be rotating. All the sets prior to Wild Zell Train will be rotating at, or no longer be legal in Standard come September of this year. That is a creature in our hand, so they can't make us discard it. Creature of the Schism is a pretty good card for them. Another land. Okay, well, I don't think we're destined to win this one because things are getting out of hand. Opponent had a really strong start in terms of stripping our hand of the Monstrous Rage and then removing one of the creatures that we're targeting with Monstrous Rage. And then we kind of whiffed on the Wrenn's Resolve. Oh. Another land. Well, sometimes this is magic. You just don't draw what you need, and you feel silly. Opponent has 5 cards in hand. How much mana do they have? They have 9 mana, so if they top deck the Valgavoth, they can just cast it. But perhaps they're just a Rakdos mid-range deck? I have a hard time believing that. But maybe they are. Nope, attracts it into the graveyard, so yeah, they're definitely a Reanimator deck. I'm gonna have Virtue Persistences are Monastery Swiftspear. They get the Fear of Missing Out trigger, which if they have Delirium, which is 4 different card types in their graveyard, or permanent card types. No, wait, it's just card types. In their graveyard, they get to untap a creature and have it attack another time. We still have some chance of winning. I don't know what it would be that we need to win, but feel like there's a chance. Maybe I'm wrong about that. We need like a Wrenn's Resolve into a Blazing Crescendo into like another pump spell. That's not gonna do it. Alright. We will concede. They're gonna attack in and gain 7 life. GG. Okay. I like this hand. We have a lot of creatures, so if they remove one, we're not at... it looks like the opponent's probably on a bunnies deck, if I had to guess. Yep, that's a rabbit. That is a rabbit. What do I do? I think we run out the Phoenix Chick just to start hitting the opponent with it as soon as possible. Heartfire Heroes are nice, but they would be summoning sick this turn, and they only are really good when you can start pumping them, which we should be able to do the following turn. There's a 2-mana bunny that does have reach, but the opponent hasn't played it, so we can keep chipping in with the chick. There's the Reacher. Ask and you shall receive. This card is pretty good in these bunnies decks. Selesnya bunnies is a very, very strong deck. If it's something that interests you, you can go ahead and craft it. But I will say that, like, in particular, Valley Quest Caller and like Felonious, those types of rare wild cards are not going to necessarily be as good in generic decks. Are we dead next turn when they attack? I don't think so. Do we wait a turn? I think we ought to start attacking in, because we can double pump spell if we want. Alright, we'll Blazing Crescendo one of these. Get the Valiant trigger to start pumping it up. Wrenn's Resolve is nice. Do we want to save the Turn It Inside Out for something else? I don't know. We'll get another Valiant trigger for right now. This might be completely the wrong thing to do, but we do get them down to 7 life, which is nice. This Wrenn's Resolve might need to be pretty good, though. Youch. Do they just have lethal? No. Okay. No. Yes, they do. Okay. Well. Well, I think that was like the only card the opponent could have had that would have turned that into lethal, because it basically gave them another 3 damage when we went to -1. I mean, if they had like a pump spell, but bunnies don't really play pump spells. They play lots and lots of bunnies. Alright. Opponent goes first. It's not a great thing to see if you're playing an aggro deck, but we'll just give this a whirl. The rest, bye-bye Monstrous Rage, I would guess, but they could take the Blazing Crescendo. So it gives us extra card draw. Or card advantage. I shouldn't say card draw when it's not draw, but bad habit of mine. Play out the Scamp. I don't know if it matters. If we lose 3 in a row, this is very sad for what has been a very, very good series of games with this deck. But try not to we'll try and show the full story in these videos, which is sometimes you get pwned. We hit our land drop. We could play Blazing Crescendo. We'll do it. Maybe we hit another pump spell or something else. Wrenn's Resolve isn't bad, but would prefer another 1 mana pump spell and the opponent to tap out. Bloodletter, it's kind of what I was expecting. That's neither of them. Alright, well this looks like Electrostatic Infantry should get pretty big. That's not very good. So if we do this, the opponent will probably block the Heartfire Hero with the Bloodletter. We could let it die and then pump up the infantry, or we could pump it up with the Turn Inside Out. It will go up to 5 power and 2 toughness. It will die. It'll deal 5 power. This will deal it will deal 5 damage to the opponent's face. This will deal 4, and then I really don't want to lose another one, so I'm trying to think this out the best I can. We'll do this. Opponent blocks it, we get rid of the demon, and that's worth something. We'll deal 9 damage. We go down to 5. But if they have a removal spell for this infantry, it is rough. It doesn't really matter what we choose, because we're not going to be able to turn up the Callous Sell-Sword, so it's just 2/2. They have 2 removal spells. We're in a bind. Okay. That is fine, because we should have lethal with just... Oh wait, no, that drains us. Okay. We can attack in with both. They block the 4 power one. We can pump it with Blazing Crescendo. It'll go up to 7 toughness and trample over. It gets a counter here, and then it gets +1 toughness, and then we can fling it after combat. And we get rid of their 6/6, so they'll start losing life to their thing again. GG. Alright, 2 more to go. Can we redeem ourselves? If you're new to the game, you might want to just mute your opponents. I think you can do that in like the settings somewhere. Alright. Opponent goes first. Not really a great thing to see. These are some good cards. Hello. Okay, it looks like our opponent is impatient as well, so we'll just mute them. Wow. 2 nasty opponents in a row. Opponent's playing Azorius, so they're probably playing a control deck that has lots of removal. So they might be playing sweepers, so if we run out a bunch of creatures and we have no creatures in hand, that could be bad. I think I will go for a Monastery Swiftspear and then one Monstrous Rage, assuming they don't. Could hold up Felonious Rage if we think they're going to remove something like 1 by 1, but if they have something like temporary lockdown, it's better to just go for maximum damage here. This is a bit of a gamble. Okay, opponent looks like they're on like Azorius Oculus because they're putting cards in their graveyard with Moment of Truth. So they're probably not going to have that much interaction besides 1 mana bounce spells, which are actually pretty bad for us, but it'll be okay, surely. Might play Blazing Crescendo. Oh, opponent looking for a lend, I think. Perhaps that's why our opponent was impatient. They were... Nope. They're just annoying. Alright, we'll play this out. We'll haste it up. Our other creatures will prowess trigger, which is nice. And then it will get a counter and then a fair amount of damage. Probably could have just won But was worried about a bounce spell if we full committed to like just our 2 creatures here. Picklock Prankster as a blocker, and then we should be able to get around it. GG. Alright. My throat is kind of messed up. Alright, we're on the draw again. It's not great to see. Opponent goes first. That's what I mean by on the draw. Means that on our first turn, we draw a card. If you play first, you don't draw a card. So that's like one thing to consider. If you're on the play and you mulligan, you're only going to have 6 cards at your disposal, whereas your opponent kind of starts with 8 cards. In a way. Phoenix Shake or Monastery Swiftspear. We'll go to Swiftspear. Hopefully this opponent's a bit more patient. I can be a bit impatient when I'm recording videos, but I feel like most of the time when I'm playing, I am a lot less impatient. We can cast that second main phase. Opponent on Izzet. Maybe I should be concerned about a sweeper here, so I may have just played into one, but because there's a 3-minute. Okay, the artifacts. Okay, this is a good sign for us. We just need like a fling card potentially, or we should be able to fly over them as well. Wow, that could be a lot of damage. All right, well, I'm gonna do a bit of a greedy thing. We'll do this. Get this on the battlefield so it starts getting counters and haste it up. If the opponent doesn't have a sweeper, this is really good. I guess it would have been greedy if they have a sweeper. Gosh darn it. Forgot about the whole sweeper thing. I was just ready for them to start making big constructs. That is my bad. So that's a good demonstration of what not to do. We'll give it a turn. We could haste it up with the Rage. Well, we could have hasted it up with the Rage, but now I'm concerned. We only have 1 creature. Right, that will make a construct. That will be a 3/3. 3 is the number of artifacts they have. Land off the top isn't great. We can tap down our creature a bunch with the net there. Well, I demonstrated a really good thing not to do. That was definitely a teaching moment that I intended as part of this video. Yep. Oh, whoops. Yeah, we're gonna die pretty fast here. Their Fountain Port was tapped, which they can start using. Alright. We'll do this. I know they're gonna tap down it with the Forge, but it gets to exile the top card of our library, so or tap it down with the Braided Net. But if we draw like a fling spell, that plus turn inside out could be good. Wrenn's Resolve is pretty decent. Oh, we might be dead. Alright, we're probably dead. This is going to do 10 damage. That's going to do another one. And then if they play one more artifact, these are going to go up to like 7 power, and that will kill us. Ooh, they have the oh so nice Skitter Beam Battalion, which has Prototype. So it comes in as a 5/5, and the clones it makes are 5/5, so it triggers the Simulacrum a whole bunch of times. GG. Alright, well that is going to do it for this deck. Hopefully you enjoyed. We ended up 12-8, which I would say is pretty good. I made a massive error in that last game, which probably cost us the game. If I held back the Electrostatic Infantry, or held back one of our creatures there, I think we would have had a fighting chance, but since we only had 1 creature and then they could tap it down repeatedly, we weren't able to finish off our opponent. And that's a good example of why this kind of creature strategy can be a bit fragile, but it can be also very explosive. Burn spells in those sorts of situations can be very strong because you can just finish off the opponent by casting spells to deal damage directly to their face and not worrying about having a creature to target with a pump spell. Well, that is going to do it for this budget no rare series. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff helps out a ton. Subscribing helps me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and consider checking out some of the other videos on the channel. Most of the decks I play aren't very budget, so that's just a forewarning, I guess. But we try and do some silly and fun things, so at least the videos should be entertaining, I hope. Anyways, have a nice morning, evening, night, afternoon, wherever and whenever you're watching. Ciao.